Welcome. This is Baptiste. I'm Christophe, and we are the authors of ClojureDart, which is a new Clojure dialect we have been working on for the past 2.5 years. What is ClojureDart? Well, surprisingly enough, it's Clojure running on the Dart ecosystem. But first, I'd like to know how many of you are doing front-end development? Okay. How many of you are aware of Dart and Flutter? Oh, not bad. How many of you have experience with Dart and Flutter? Okay. Well, that's about what we expected. So why did we choose to create a Clojure for Dart? The thing is that we were willing to create UI applications in Clojure. And we wanted to do it in a cross-platform manner. And there were only partial solutions targeting one platform or the other, or the best or worst answer was to just use web technology and have something in a web view. And at the same time that we were looking for a solution, Flutter was gaining some popularity. And Flutter proposes exactly that, to be a one-stop solution to all UI development needs, be it on mobile, desktop, or even web. But to use Flutter, you have to write some Dart, because Flutter is written in Dart, and Dart is just yet another statically typed object-oriented language. And that's why we decided to try to target Dart with Clojure rather than write Dart by hand. So basically, we learned Dart so that you don't have to. You're welcome. So Dart gives Dart and Flutter, but Dart itself gives some property to ClojureDart, such as making ClojureDart one of the shortest paths to go from Clojure code to native binaries. With ClojureDart, you can target iOS and Android. You can also target the 3 desktops, be it in ARM or Intel. But let's not be blinded by the focus on Flutter. You can also do command line application with plain Dart and with plain ClojureDart. And what makes Dart a good client language? That is, it starts fast. Well, the binaries that it generates start fast and are not too big, makes it also a good candidate for writing command line utilities or functions as a service. Plus, Dart has good FFI to C, but also to the platform languages. It means that when you are working on Android, you can reach out to libraries and frameworks which are written in Kotlin or Java. And when you are on iOS or macOS, you can reach out to frameworks written in Objective-C or Swift. And Dart happens to compile to JavaScript too. And they are also working on the WASM-GC backend. So hopefully WASM-GC backend will be done by the time WASM-GC is implemented by browsers. And when you compile Dart to JS, you can use the FFI to target the web API. So in some bizarre way, it makes Dart and its standard library a kind of internal competitor to Google Clojure. So an alternative to using the web API from Dart when you do web stuff is just to rely on Flutter, in which case the UI will be painted inside a big canvas. So it brings us to Flutter. So Flutter, like we mentioned, is a UI toolkit. And it doesn't try to wrap any of the operating system components. It comes with its own widgets. It owns the whole rendering stack and animation and event handling. So you don't have to deal with any legacy or craft in terms of API. And despite the focus on rendering, they didn't forget to put accessibility at the core of Flutter. Right next to the paint method, there's the describe semantics method. so that Flutter UI are usable with screen readers such as TalkBack or VoiceOver. From a usability point of view, as a developer, Flutter is kind of a post-React framework. It doesn't expose to the user of the framework a graph of interdependent, stateful objects. Instead, you just provide an immutable description of the UI, very much like you do with the virtual DOM in React. And it makes it a good fit with Clojure, where you can just have functions creating part of the UI in the same way that you may have functions creating some hiccup-like representation for reagent. And last, Flutter is wide. There are a lot of widgets in Flutter proper. Plus, they come with excellent documentation. You have a live example where you can tweak the sample code, run them right in the browser, and see the effect. They have short video clips covering the essential widgets. And these video clips come from the Flutter YouTube channel, which is a really great source of knowledge and discovery for when you come to Flutter, because every week you get new videos, and some are very in-depth coverage of a specific topic, but some are 2 or 3 minute long topical videos showcasing one widget or one package. So very cool, and there are nearly 500,000 subscribers to this channel. It was a bit surprising, but apparently the Flutter community is quite large. And when something is not covered by Flutter proper, you can look into the third-party packages. There's pub.dev, which is their package repository, and it holds 35,000 packages, and so you'll find wrappers for many frameworks which are available on the targets that you are interested with. And last, there was a recent statistic as of January, 1 out of 5 new apps in the Google Play Store is written in Flutter. So it's more than all the other cross-platform toolkit combined. So it looks like it keeps gaining some steam. Well, all of these qualities make writing UI application with ClojureDart a pleasure. And Baptiste is going to give you a demo.
Do you hear me? Yes? Okay, perfect. So who wants to see live coding? Yeah? Okay. Screen mirroring. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to try to build a to-do list application on the iOS emulator. So let's start. First, when you start ClojureDart application, you want to look at our repository, and there is basically the first run part that it's pretty easy to follow. So we are going to do that. I see nothing. Okay.
Is the font big enough?
Okay, so I created the hello repository with just a deps.edn. Hello, deps.edn. So the ClojureDart compiler is just a pure Clojure library. We have written the compiler in Clojure itself without almost any Dart. So we are pretty proud of that. There is currently only a SHA, but you can, once you have the dependency, you can just call upgrade to catch the last upgrade, to catch the last stable ClojureDart compiler. So I'm already up to date. These are the imported options. So mainly you have the kind option, either a Flutter application or a Dart, CLI, or Cloud Function project, and the main, which is the main namespace entry point. Flutter or Dart are going to look for the main function that they are going to run. Then once you have the ClojureDart compiler installed, you can initialize a project. And it's going to set up all Flutter and Dart dependencies. So you will see lots of directories, macOS, iOS, Android, Linux, stuff like that. And then we are going to create a namespace and open an emulator. And then just run the Flutter CLI. Okay, so while it's compiling, let's take a look at the namespace. Okay, so is it good? Yeah? Okay, so we have the acme.main namespace that was referenced in the depths.tdn. And we are importing one pure Dart library, which is Flutter material. The material library has a lot of very useful widgets. And the clg.flutter library, which is a pure Clojure one, and it's a thin wrapper around Flutter with lots of helpers. So basically, you don't have to create Dart classes and so on. So, and then you have the main function, that is the main entry point that Flutter is going to run. So our wrapper, Flutter wrapper, has mainly two macros, frun and fwidget. And for each macros, you have this kind of options, and you must return some kind of widget. So fwidget is our way to create widgets, stateless and stateful widgets, and frun is only used for the main function. It's a lib. Okay, so basically that's the default application you will find when navigating on our GitHub. There is this, so this is declaring an application, and then you have a scaffold. The scaffold is the scaffold with an app bar and just a text, which is center. Basically, everything is widgets in Flutter. So to center something, you don't have to necessarily add a property. You can use the center widget. So for example, if we change this color to blue, up, so it's live coding. It's updating at the real time.
You change the header too?
Yeah, let's change the header. Blue, also blue.
And
okay.
What's with these weird symbols with a dot in front?
Okay, so in Dart, you have name parameters. And in ClojureDart, we choose this syntax, a dot. So for example, the app bar name parameter, you just use a dot and then the value. Okay, so let's create our list. To have a to-do list, we want to display some kind of list, of course, and there is a widget for that. So let's look at Flutter API reference. Okay, and there is this widget, the list view widget. So like Christophe said earlier, there are lots of documentation, even live examples. If we have a good internet connection, I don't know. Yeah, so for example, this is a live example. You can modify code and everything. And I'm just going to look at the builder. So this is a name parameter, like I said earlier. And in this example, I only care about children. So I'm going to try a list view. with children, and it will have 2 texts, for example. Okay, so we have our 2 items. If you look closely, this is supposed to be a pure Dart list of widgets, and we are using a persistent vector. That's because in ClojureDart, persistent vector are also Dart list. Okay, so if we go back to documentation, I did like this UI, and this UI is just a list tile. So it's a quick way to have something nice. And for example, if we look at list tile, you have all these options that you can use, but I'm only going to use the title option. So here, let's use a list tile with some title, and title is just a widget, and I don't want style. Okay.
And you can remove the center widget. It's useless now.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Okay, we might want to add some checkbox. Let's look for checkbox. Checkbox list style. Wonderful. So now we can use the checkbox list style. And again, there are lots of live example, but here, if we look at the constructor, it only requires a value, so true or false, and a callback. And this callback has 1 parameter. So the checkbox list style has a value. Let's hard code it, true, and a callback unchanged. And it has just 1 parameter. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So this is exactly the look that I want. A checkbox with my to-do. Now we need some state. Okay. So we love global state. So I'm going to create an item with a list, a persistent vector of my items. My coffee. True. And don't spend 2 hours at US Customs.
Without the E.
Okay, so I have my global application state, and now what I want is to display with the checkbox list style all items. So what I'm going to do here is use the watch option from Flutter. So what watch is doing, app state, watch is going to make Flutter rebuild the widget below every time a value changes. So here I'm listening to the whole atom, but I can only listen for part of the tree. So basically I listen for any change in application state.
And watch is not restricted to atoms. You can use watch on many
Firebase connection, streams,
features,
anything. So what I want to do here is map. So I receive an item, and I want to return my checkbox list tile widget. And as an input, I will have the state, and I can derive this. Title, done. So done. Title. Perfect. Okay, let's add some the unchanged callback. Okay, so when I click here, it will run my callback, and I want to update the done property on the specific item that I clicked on. So let's use map indexed. Index here. And when I click here, what I want to do is swap my application state and update in the index. So in here, for example, done, and apply the not function. So if it's true, it will be false, and so on. Okay, perfect. So what can also be nice, thank you. What can also be nice is that to have a line through the text if my to-do item is done. There is an option for that. On the text widget here, you can style it. If we look at the documentation, you have lots of configuration, but I only want the style and some decoration. And if you look at decoration, you have the line through, the line, and the line. So let's add some style, text style, and we want some decoration. And if it's done, we want text decoration. Yeah, this line through. And if not, just the none. Okay, perfect. Okay, so basically what we have right now is a pure Clojure namespace. We require the Flutter library as a string because it's a pure Dart package, and we have our thin wrapper. We create some application states with two to-dos, and then we run our material app application that has a scaffold, and the body is basically a list that is rebuilt every time our item changes. List item are just checkbox list style, and we have the callback that updates the application state when we click on it. Okay, so let's add some way to create to-dos. If we look at this scaffold, you see the app bar, but it has many more options. Scaffold. For example, this plus is called a floating action button. And it could be useful to quickly add, for example, a material, a bottom sheet, sorry, yeah, or navigation or stuff like that. So, okay, let's just copy paste the code. Floating action button. So I am on the scaffold. Okay. Okay, it's a callback. I don't care about this. Okay, so we have our plus button, and when we click on plus, what I would love to have is, yeah, something like that. Show bottom sheet, or even show model bottom sheet. That show model bottom sheet. Okay. This one is not persistent. It means that the user can click elsewhere, and yeah, like that. Perfect. So let's copy that. So basically, it's a global function that takes some context. We are going to explain what it is, and a builder, which is just a callback that returns a widget. Okay.
That's a lot of parentheses at the bottom.
Yeah, you can see lots of parentheses in Dart. Okay. Okay. We can erase this. don't care about the color, and then, okay. And then it takes some children, and we don't care about the rest. Okay, let's try it with just some simple text. And then, and this function, okay, so this is outside. And this onPress callback must return nil. Okay, perfect. And yes, it takes a context. So a context is something that is used a lot in Flutter, but in ClojureDart we mostly never use it, except when you have to call global function like that, because showModel bottom sheet can be called anywhere. It needs some context to find the element. Well, it's complicated, but we have an option for that. It's context. So you can bind context to anything you want. Okay, so when I click, I have my A. Perfect.
Now you may find that Flutter code tends to be quite nested, and it's a very common pattern which is tied to the fact that they use widget for everything. So every time that you need to add an aspect of something to the widget, you wrap it into another one. And so we have made the frun and fwidget macros to act a bit like threading macros so that you can flatten the hierarchies. Can you show that?
Yeah, so with fwidget, you can flatten any widget by taking this out, the prop out.
Yeah, you can extract any property.
Right. You can
but generally, the biggest property that you are willing to extract is a child property.
Right, so let's extract every child properties. Okay. So now we have something like that. And because child is so common, only for the child property, you can delete it.
And when you have a symbol with parentheses on it, you can remove the parentheses, again, like with the threading macros. So you can remove the parentheses around center.
Okay, perfect. So we went from this to this.
Can you remove the parentheses around center for me, please?
Okay. Okay, so let's add some input text. So when I click here, I want my input text, and I want to be able to submit on enter. So there is a widget for that, and it's called text field. It's basically an input text with lots of options again, but in our demo, I only care about the unsubmitted callback because I don't want to add a button. So. And this callback is taking the value. Yeah, so perfect. Instead of this text, I'm going to use my text field with an unsubmitted callback, and that's the value. So let's try just. No. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay. And when I press enter, I want to add one to the item here. So it's easy. I just need to swap my application state and conj my new item. So val and then false. Perfect. I can now add to-dos. So here, for example, I pressed enter, but the text is still there. It's because on production, you would have to control exactly what the text displays and so on, but it's fine for us. Okay, what can we do next? We can, for example, let user dismiss an item. So you can make an item done, but it would be nice if user could delete an item, and there is a widget for that. It's called dismissed. And let's see an example. So what dismiss does is on slide you can do on swipe. Sorry, you can do an action. Okay, let's look at this. So it needs a key and a child. A key in Flutter is basically a way to uniquely identify siblings in a list.
Especially when the siblings can be reorganized.
Exactly. Okay, so it's easy. Let's look at our checkbox list tile. I'm going to add this widget. So the dismissible with a key. I will go for a value key and some ID. I will hide the ID here. ID 1, ID 2, and create also ID gensim. And right, so we have the key, and the child is the checkbox list tile that we are going to wrap in the F widget, so it's already the child. On dismiss, I want to delete. The to-do. So there is this callback with the direction. We don't care about direction, but dismissed. Undismissed, yeah. Okay. So let's create this. We don't care about the direction, but what we want to do here, when user swipe, we are going to remove basically the element at the index, this index. So subvec s0 index and the index. Okay. And oh, so this is a pure Flutter exception, and we have this because our application state has been set with def once, so it knew nothing about ID. So what we need to do here is a hot restart to start from scratch, basically, with our application's state.
Yeah, because up to now, all the updates were
hot reload.
Yeah, hot reloaded, so the state was preserved. Since we have broken the state, we need to restart.
Right, and it's working. So I can delete this. And what you can do if you want something nicer, we can add some background. And background is what's behind this. So just add a container with a red color, red. Nice, and we could add some text. Widgets. So text. Delete. Okay, but it's on the left, so we need to align it. Alignment center right, I think. Yeah, perfect. And white text would be better. Text style, colors, dot white. Okay. Yeah. Let's try to run this application on Android. Okay. Okay, so basically, yes. So we have our application on macOS, Android, and iOS at the same time. And if you modify anything, even in development, it will display real time. That's cool, right? And if you are crazy enough, you can even run this on Chrome. If it's working. Yeah, here we go. Et voilà, that's it.